You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Deep Space Nine episode, Our Man Bashir. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Jason Tyler. Hey, Father.
Hello.
Folks, be sure to get your very own Secrets of Star Trek t-shirt like you're seeing I'm wearing on the video. You can do that by visiting our merchandise shop at sqpn.com/merch. So we are discussing the episode Our Man Bashir, and I'll turn it over to you, Jimmy, to get a recap of what happened in this one.
This week, Julian's playing a 1960s style James Bond holosuite scenario, but Garak crashes. He comes in. Meanwhile, Sisko, Kira, Jadzia, O'Brien, and Worf are coming back to the station on a runabout, but the runabout has been sabotaged by Cardassians and explodes. Eddington beams them back, but then there's a transporter accident. To keep their patterns from degrading, he uses an emergency procedure that ends up storing their mental patterns in the station's computers and their physical patterns in the holodeck, where they replace 5 of the characters from the James Bond-style story. Eddington, Odo, and Rom then get busy trying to find a way to reintegrate and rematerialize them. And Julian must keep the program running without killing anybody until they can do that. This leads to conflict between Julian and Garak. Garak keeps telling Julian he may not be able to save everyone. Evil Sisko is the big bad of the story, and he has a plan to flood the world and start the human race anew. After Evil Sisko has them in his power, Garak tells Julian it's time to quit and leave the holodeck, even though opening it may kill their 5 comrades. Garak starts to open the holodeck, but Julian shoots him to stop him with a gun. This causes Garak to gain new respect for Julian. Julian must then stall long enough for the effort to rematerialize everyone, and he pretends to defect to Evil Sisko's side. To make this more convincing, he repeats back to Evil Sisko everything Garak just said to him about knowing when to quit. And he activates Sisko's plan to flood the world and start the human race again. Evil Sisko still plans to kill Julian, but he's delayed long enough that the beam out is successful and the crew are finally reunited and return to their bodies in the real world. Afterwards, Garak congratulates Julian on saving the day by destroying the world. The end.
Father, what'd you think of this one?
I thought it was a fun episode overall. When it was new, it was probably a lighthearted break from some of the heavier episodes that Deep Space Nine did so well. And you know, Deep Space Nine, they did mix in some of these lighter episodes from time to time, like Take Me Out to the Holosuite in Season 7 or In the Cards in Season 5, just before the Dominion War starts. So I think this was probably one that I enjoyed more the first time I saw it, when it truly was a break from heavier stories. But watching it on its own and having forgotten how it plays out, I kept wanting and waiting for some external threat to come into play, something beyond just the holodeck to sort of add more pressure to the situation. But that never did. But still, overall, a fun episode, I think.
How about you, Jimmy?
I think it's a fun episode. It's not as good as they do, as Father says, they do these break episodes especially when they're about to start something really big. And this is not In the Cards. That one is genius level.
Yeah.
But this is fun. I noticed it was written by Ron Moore. Especially if you know the source material, which I don't know terribly well. I imagine I'd get more out of it if I was a James Bond fan. Yeah. But it's fun. There are a few things that you know I would do differently if I were writing it. One thing that I don't like about it is, again, it's the magical technology problem. They have so much magical technology on Star Trek that they have to have multiple failures in order to get the plot even off the ground. And you can kind of excuse some of those with the shuttle, since it had been sabotaged. Maybe the Cardassians sabotaged multiple systems in it. And we never learn anything else about that sabotage attempt. They never follow up on it. Mm-hmm. But multiple system failures on the shuttle. And then when they beam them in, the computer happens to get fried, or the transporter happens to get fried, so they can't reintegrate them immediately. and it's just storing their patterns. And then it's like, well, shouldn't the transporter itself be able to store a pattern? You know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's all just an excuse to get some of our regulars playing in this 1960s spy scenario. And so if you ignore all the implausibilities, it's a fun scenario.
Yeah.
I really liked that Garak takes this seriously, because what this is really about is the play between Garak as a real spy who has had to make real hard decisions, and Julian, who is a fantasy spy who has never made hard decisions. And I like that Julian earns Garak's respect by actually shooting him with a bullet, and then implicitly Garak has earned Julian's respect, because when he's pretending to convert to Sisko's side, he just repeats back everything Garak had just told him about knowing when to quit. And so it's clear the two of them have earned each other's respect.
Yeah.
Right. I like this one too. I'm a James Bond fan, so I got the references, and it's kind of fun to see the Garak as a knowing Bond, not knowing Bond at all, but being an actual spy, kind of approaching and going, it's sort of like a real special forces soldier, or a real astronaut, or a real fighter pilot watching these Hollywood versions of themselves, going, oh my gosh, like one of my YouTube channels I like to watch is a firefighter who watches TV shows about firefighters and totally ripping them apart for all the nonsense. So it's kind of fun to watch that happen a little bit with Garak. I do agree with it's yet another transporter trope problem. It's funny that our last DS9 episode was also about a transporter problem, but apparently not every time the ship explodes while it's in transport, it explodes the transporter on the other end. It's kind of just for the convenience of plot things. Again,
they wink at this problem early on in the script, where that Ronald Moore is writing, because when Garak crashes Julian's party, and gets his agreement to let him be there, Garak says, "What a wonderful time! After all, what could possibly go wrong?" And it's like at the top of a holodeck episode, you just know. So that's Ron Moore winking at the audience. Definitely. Something's going to go wrong.
The idea that it needs to store the neural patterns separate from the physical patterns, that's all nonsense. It's like you said, Jimmy, it is just convenience in order to get the forms of our main characters into the character of these spy novel people. So that's fine, whatever. I would say, this was something that occurred to me early on watching this, only Hollywood people would think that acting out stories on a holodeck, including kissing holographic paramours, would not be cringe. Like, you're weird. Like, as I'm sitting there watching, going, that would be weird to be like, because of course actors do this all the time, right? They act out as not, fake people. But I would feel weird to act out. Like, role-playing games is one thing. You're sitting there, you're talking about, what you're doing. But like, to be acting it out with fake people, it's just weird.
They're LARPing, except they've got fake people involved.
Yeah.
But they're doing live action role play.
Right. It is live action role play, but it goes beyond, like, if it was just fighting, Worf's calisthenics program, so it would be one thing, but like the weird personal interaction stuff, this kind of creeps me out. So it's very cringe to me.
I don't know, but I hope most LARPers don't go that far.
Right. So, and I kind of feel like maybe Ron Moore knows this, because he does write into the script how Bashir is so annoyed at Garak breaking into his program, and it does seem a kind of violation of privacy. Like, people in the holodecks or holosuites expect a certain amount of privacy when they're playing out their fantasies as, spies or what have you.
And Bashir even mentions, that it's illegal for Garak to have come in the way he did. And that made me wonder, is there a specific law in the 24th century related to holodeck invasion, so to speak? Or is it just a general trespassing law, the way that a trespassing law would apply if you've rented a hotel room and somebody came in or something?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they don't clarify for us.
Yeah.
My assumption, because they've really stressed privacy rights on the show before, on Star Trek before, that's what it would be.
Yeah.
But I've rented this holodeck, and that puts me in charge of it the same way I've rented a hotel room is an interest in, possibility.
Yeah. So Garak's observations are a lot of fun, like especially early on. We have the Bond style valet, the beautiful woman. Mona Loves It, which is such a Bond woman name.
Man, I hate the names. Like, fortunately, there's only two of them in that. Well, there's two salacious names. One of them is Mona Loves It. The other is Honey Bear, which if you watch with the subtitles turned on, it's Bear is spelled BARE. So
The Bond did that way too often. Yeah.
We also have Dr. Noah instead of Dr. No.
Yes.
Is the villain. And Falcon is a sort of trait name for, one of the thugs that's played by O'Brien.
Right. I have to admit, after all these years, I only got Dr. Noah as, the Ark. Watching it this time, like I can't believe I missed that. Every other time I've seen this is that, Noah's Ark, they're just the remnant of society. I get it.
Yeah.
That the Ark is his implausibly built layer on, the slopes of Mount Everest, because no one would notice that.
Yeah.
But that's a Bond thing anyway.
You were commenting on Garak's comments, and as we go along in the story. And that, like at one point, Garak says, once he sees how Julian is living this lavish lifestyle as a jet setter, so I think I joined the wrong intelligence service.
That was good. Yeah.
I also wonder, I wonder though. I mean, so Julian explains that he lives as this jet setter in Hong Kong, and or maybe it was Singapore, I forget.
Hong Kong,
but which would make sense given the British Empire in the 1960s. But he explains that his apartment and his clothes and everything is all his jet set and lifestyle is provided to him by his government. And then we have Major Kira show up after the accident as Colonel Anastasia Komananov, and she's Russian, and she clearly knows who Julian is.
Right.
So if the Russians know that he's really a British spy, why is he maintaining this jet set and lifestyle? How do they justify that?
Well, you can ask Ian Fleming because he did that with James Bond.
Okay.
That's one of the funny tropes. I joined the wrong intelligence service was good. He also makes the comment like, weren't we just in Paris? Like he's trying to imply. I know several hundred years ago you could not transport from Paris to this other side of the planet that quickly, but James Bond manages it, so we just have to be okay with it. And then we get the Slinky Kira again, which is, it's kind of funny. Every time Kira has like a transplant, she's Slinky Kira. I don't know why.
I like her.
Nana Visitor likes that, I guess.
Or the writers like doing it with her. I like her better in this role than I do the Intendant from the Mirror
hands
universe.
down. And then we have this thing with we're stuck inside this program. We can't turn it off. We can't access the controls, and the safeties aren't working.
More hologram failures, just in addition to all the other accidents we've had this episode.
Right. So we have holodeck trope, and now and transporter trope. I mean, we get the granddaddy of it.
And exploding spaceship trope, where you have to have multiple, like they can't eject the warp core, to save themselves from exploding.
Right. We've got a lot of the breakdown in technology tropes in this one. There's a funny moment when they're still in Bashir's apartment in Kowloon when Falcon comes in and he throws the smoke bomb and he turns to fight one of Falcon's thugs, and the thug has a pistol in his hand and goes to attack Julian with a punch. You got a gun. Shoot him. But, okay. Again, maybe it's like another Bond trope thing. Like, yeah, I get it. It's just, I thought it was funny.
Allegedly, this was also influenced by The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Wild Wild West. But it's been so long since I've seen any of the Wild Wild West episodes, and I've never really seen The Man from U.N.C.L.E., so I didn't pick up on tropes from them.
Wasn't there another one? Flint,
Our Man
Michael
Flint.
Caine, Our Man Flint. I mean, that's kind of the name, right? I mean, so I would assume that that's also influence here too.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to go back to Garak making that statement to Julian, like saying, look, you're, it's fine. You've been play acting, but now things are real. Like now our lives are on the line. And he says, real spies have to make hard choices. You may not have the luxury of saving everyone. And he doesn't want Bashir treating this like a Bond novel where he knows the happy ending already, but like a real spy mission because their lives are on the line. And Bashir, I think he knows that. It's not that he doesn't know that there's real consequences. It's I'm weighing my life against those of the 5 others, or our 2 lives, in fact, against those of 5 others, and I don't want to save myself at their expense. And so it shows the difference in morality between Garak and Bashir in this case, which I think is an interesting contrast and really highlights their relationship.
And even though there's a humanitarian element of 2 lives versus 5, the 5 in question are also his friends.
Right.
Yeah. That's true. Right.
Yeah, I had noticed the same thing. This is a real contrast between Bashir saying, hey, I want to save my friends, even if at the risk of my own life, and Garak kind of calculating the odds and saying, there's a pretty good chance this isn't going to work. Let's just save ourselves and get out of here.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess they missed a point where Julian could have said, well, I guess you shouldn't have crashed my program then.
There you go. Yeah.
You crash my program. You have to go abide by my rules. So Dax is Professor Honeybear. In Bond stories, you often have somebody important that's abducted by the supervillain that Bond is trying to track down. O'Brien is this heavy named Falcon who's got the eye patch. And by the way, Colomini does a great job playing the heavy. He's fun when he does that. Worf is this Duchamp, who's Dr. Noah's associate of some sort, who plays Baccarat against, again, that's the James Bond card game that nobody else knows how to play. They play Baccarat in order to gain entry into Dr. Noah's inner sanctum. And it's funny because
to win money to get an audience with Dr. Noah.
Right. Duchamp says you have to, the entry fee is £5 million, and Bashir says, I'll pay that $5 million with the money sitting in front of you after I win it from you. And of course they go for it because this is again a James Bond thing. And Garak is appalled, but Bashir knows this is how these stories go. Like you when you know the story, you know how to work your way through it. It's it's sort of like playing a video game.
Yeah, the program is going to let you win that 5 million francs or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, couple of minor characters in this one.
After he does win all the money, so that they can have their audience with Dr. Noah. There is a 1960s TV trope. I don't know that they did this in James Bond movies, but they definitely did this kind of thing in things like Wild Wild West and other 1960s TV shows. Worf as Duchamp has been smoking cigars at this Baccarat table. And once they win the money, he puts down his current cigar and pulls another one out of his cigar case And they say, so when do we leave to meet Dr. Noah? And he says, right now. And then he blows through the cigar, and this 1960s sleep gas comes out and puts them all to sleep. So that they won't see how they're getting to Dr. Noah's lair. Yeah. But that trope of you could having sleep gas in a cigar that you can just blow in people's faces and it will instantly knock them out. That's very 1960s spy tech.
That it occurred to me while I was watching it going, the holosuite would have had to formulate on the fly a knockout powder that would instantly render a human, a Cardassian, and a Bajoran unconscious immediately with no lasting ill effect. That's a remarkable bit of technology you got going there.
Or it might just do something to the sleep centers in their brain, but who knows?
Perhaps scarier, actually. Yeah. I was going to mention we got a couple of minor characters here. We have Eddington, who this is 4th season, but it's pre-Eddington's turn. Eddington will do the heel turn.
He's a total good guy here. He's genuinely trying to save these Federation officers.
Yeah, I think Eddington is a fascinating character because he is a guy who thinks he's doing the right thing at all times. Even when he betrays the rest, he will be. And I know we'll get to those episodes, but I think he's a fascinating character. But yeah, here he's working hard to do the right thing. And then we have Rom, who is starting to emerge as the engineering genius that he will be in later seasons. And I like this. That's the Rom I really enjoy watching. But Rom has used all kinds of gimmicks and gizmos to keep the holosuites running despite Quark
not paying for replacement parts.
Yeah, his brother's penurious nature. He's including a spatula. But then he says, "Bull, it's made of this compound that works perfectly in this situation." It's like, oh, okay. So I do like that, having both of those. So Dr. Noah is a kind of, would you say he's kind of a Malthusian, where he think overpopulation is going to destroy the world?
I didn't get that it was overpopulation. It's just we've ruined things, so we need to start over.
Yeah. Yeah, not so much that there are too many people, but I don't like the people that are around, so I'm going to get rid of all of them.
Waiter, this human race is bad. I'd like another.
Yeah,
it's sort of similar to the Doctor Who episode you and I just did, Jimmy, with the third Doctor, the invasion of the dinosaurs, where they were going to gather the brightest minds, the best people, and get rid of everybody else. This was a very 60s sort of trope, and it's always the best scientists, because we have to save the scientists above all. Those are the best ones. Speaking of which, the science in his destruction scenario is
I know,
very suspect.
Yeah. So the idea is he's got like 100 lasers stationed at key points around the world, and on command, they will start drilling into the Earth's crust, which will release magma from the Earth's crust that will cause the continents to sink. And
it's going to be like a pop balloon.
and that will result in the oceans covering everything but the top of Mount Everest, which will now be an island. And it's like, dude, I think you ought to run this past some of those geologists you've kidnapped, because I don't think this is how it works.
That's not how any of this works.
And then they portray it happening really quickly too. Yeah. When Julian hits the button, it's like within 3 minutes, seconds. The whole world is covered in water.
Where's the lava going? That's what I want to know. Mm-hmm. All this lava or magma you're letting out.
Aren't you just building new continents?
Yeah,
exactly. Oh my gosh! Wouldn't it just either turn the oceans to gas, or because it's boiling it off, or solidifying in the oceans, or I don't know. It's just really weird. It was, but okay. But it's Bond villain weird. We've seen Bond villains with similarly dumb plans, so that's fine. So Bashir and Garak, they've been captured. They've been sent down to one of these laser sites, presumably below Everest, and they've been tied to the device so that when the laser starts, the magma will come up and fill the room and burn them alive in this overly elaborate Bond villain way of killing them instead of just shooting them.
At least there's an explanation for why Noah needs to leave, with this death trap instead of staying to watch it work, because he doesn't want to be burned alive too.
Yes. I go back to the man with the golden gun?
Golden gun.
Yeah. Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. That's a great line. But the fact is, could the holosuite make lava to kill them? I mean, would they actually die?
We're told the safeties are off. I'm sure with the safeties on, the holodeck could create the illusion of lava. But with the safeties off, I'm guessing it can create the real thing. I mean, it's just basically, it's a transporter creating new stuff.
Mm. Gosh, I mean, that would like destroy the room though. Like it would destroy the holodeck. Like probably
that's why they have safeties.
Yeah, like even before it reached them, like a pile of magma sitting in the middle of the floor would burn through the floor probably.
Well, it certainly would with modern 21st century materials, but they're using weird duranium stuff.
Yeah. So I'm trying to imagine like someone designing a holodeck that's capable of doing this, like that's even capable, even with the safeties off. Like that seems like a bad idea.
Yeah. And we get a line in this scene where, as Noah's about to leave and they're about to be burned alive, we have a lame supervillain quip, which is "Try to stay cool, Mr. Bashir."
Could have been such a better line. That's on supervillain departure lines. It doesn't rank up there. Mm-hmm. So we have another cringe scene where Bashir has to seduce Dr. Bayer in order to get her to give him the key to the handcuffs that's binding them. Which Garak is all of us cringing at this moment.
Yeah, but it works. And then he says, "Kiss the girl, get the key." They never taught me that in the Obsidian Order.
Exactly.
Going, really? They did?
Well, again, you joined the wrong intelligence service, Garak.
I guess the Obsidian Order doesn't consider seduction among its legitimate spy tools or something.
Yeah,
here with honey traps, we've on Earth, this can happen.
But that's when we get this interesting moment between Garak and Bashir when it gets real serious, and Garak says, you're play acting at being a spy. A real intelligence agent has no ego, no conscience, no remorse, only a sense of professionalism. And, he doesn't think Bashir can pull the trigger. It's time to face reality, Doctor. You're a man who dreams of being a hero because you know deep down that you're not. I'm no hero either, but I do know how to make a choice, and I'm choosing to save myself. And these are some harsh words that he's throwing out there at Bashir. And
it's also partially unjustified because they just got out of the trap that was going to kill him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And I think Garak is wrong, at least from a human perspective about, a spy needing no conscience and no remorse. I think I would prefer to have, if we're going to talk about reality, I'd prefer my CIA agents to have consciences and a sense of remorse and not do things only because the end justifies the means.
I think you may have joined the wrong intelligence service.
This is true. But it really sets Bashir off.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It does. One thing that there's also an intrusion to the fantasy aspect of this here, because the goal is to keep the physical forms of all five alive. Mm-hmm. So that they can be reintegrated with their neural patterns that are stored in the station's computers. But as we're heading to the climax of the program, there's a problem because Julian knows how these 1960s spy stories work. And he says, based on the way the other stories have gone, Noah will kill either Dax or Kira, and the other one is supposed to end up with me. So he knows that just because of the plot structure of how this scenario works, there's going to be an imminent threat to their ability to preserve the physical form of one of their comrades. and it ends up being Jadzia, because she betrayed Noah by giving Julian the key. She's the one that is Noah's going to go after to try to kill.
Right. So it's interesting, after this was produced, after this came out, like when they were writing this, like Ronald Moore was saying, he was working really hard to make as many Bond references as he could within the bounds of copyright. Like like the MGM Broccoli pictures were really on, like protecting that copyright. But when they came out, they actually did get an angry letter from MGM about that they'd gone too far. How's it go? Apparently MGM did not find imitation to be the sincerest form of flattery in this case, as according to the Memory Alpha wiki. But I think that's interesting that they got so upset about it, and that they tried to do. I mean, they said this was the longest shoot of any single episode of DS9. Usually they could do it in 7 days, and they did this one it had to take 9 days because of how elaborate it was. Pretty wild.
There certainly are a lot of different sets in this, all of which were custom.
Yeah,
because they're not just walking around using the promenade. They're using all kinds of. They've got the apartment in. They have the initial place in Paris. Then they've got the apartment in Hong Kong. Then they've got a casino in Paris that's different. Then they've got the mountain hideaway. Then they've got the underground with the laser. That they've got a lot of stuff going on here set wise. That's a lot of putting them up and taking them down and blocking them and, doing the light in for them and stuff.
So Memory Alpha has a long list of all the James Bond homages in this one. So that would be a fun look through for people to look at. At the end, we kind of get this idea that it says that it's safe to say that Julian Bashir's secret agent will return, but we don't get any more. We get a brief scene where Julian and O'Brien are playing one of these novels, and they get interrupted briefly. Okay.
But it may be the letter from MGM, which is why they didn't do another full adventure like this.
That'd be my guess. Yeah.
Right. I do like the fact that it will eventually turn out that the guy who's writing these holo novels, holographic programs for Bashir, his name is Felix, which is probably an homage to Felix Leiter, the CIA agent friend of James Bond, which is fun. Anything else you wanted to say about this one, Father?
Just one little comment on the shuttle or the runabout explosion. There's a Cardassian terrorist organization called True Way. And I believe that's the first time we hear about them, and they don't become prominent later. And we get maybe one or two other references to them. Does that seem right to you guys?
Do we get any? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's what Memory Alpha's for.
I thought they mentioned one other one that came later.
They might.
But never like an on-screen, we don't get the full fleshing out of this organization the way that we did, say, for the Maquis.
Yeah.
Right. It's just
and they seem
kind of a throwaway.
Yeah, they seem to be set up to be the Cardassian analog to the Maquis, as it were.
Yeah, they unfortunately in Deep Space Nine they don't really focus on dissident groups too much. So we kind of have the Bajorans and the Cardassians, but they mention and occasionally interact with like dissident Bajorans. And here we've got a reference to dissident Cardassians, but they don't really explore those as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one more reference to them, an attempt to assassinate the Bajoran First Minister Shakar in a later episode this season called Crossfire.
Yeah, everyone wants to kill him.
Shakar's toast. All right, Jimmy, any other notes on this one?
I like a couple. One of them is I like the dialogue when Julian shoots Garak with a bullet, because he's got like a little gun that I don't know is disguised as something else, but he's turned it into a gun. And as Garak is in the act of calling for the arch in the holodeck so he can get out, Garak shoots him in those prodigious Cardassian neck sides, which injures him and gets his attention, but it's not a vital organ. So, Bashir just says, well, it's just a flesh wound. And Garak says, what if you'd killed me? And Julian says, what makes you think I wasn't trying? And Garak then says, Doctor, I do believe there is hope for you yet. and I like, that's one of a number of moments in Deep Space Nine where Garak is pleasantly surprised by Bashir's ability to do something ruthless.
Mm.
And he takes that as encouragement. And so that's where Julian has really earned his respect. You weren't trying to wing me. You're implying, at least, whether you're telling me the truth or not's another matter, but you're at least implying that you were trying to kill me. And that's ruthless enough. That earns my respect as a former member of the Obsidian Order. And it's similar to situations with like Klingons, where you stand up to them and do something, or, give them pushback, and they respect you more. This is the same kind of moment, only in a Cardassian key. The other thing I wanted to mention is the acting that Captain Sisko does in the big bad role, or Avery Brooks. So you've had Julian just give him this big speech about, here, I'm switching sides, I want to join your new world order thing. And he sells it persuasively. And evil Sisko, or Dr. Noah, is holding a gun on him as he's delivering this speech. And so he's just delivered this persuasive speech. And the question is, what's Dr. Noah's reaction going to be? And Avery Brooks is, looking at Julian very intensely and is listening to this whole speech. And then he suddenly just goes, ha! And you're not sure what that means. And he then starts monologuing in this jittery, hysterical, I'm on the edge, I'm about to lose control way that he similarly does much later in the series in The Far Beyond the Stars, where two-parter, where as a writer in the 1950s, he kind of gets Benny. Yep. He gets driven to the edge of insanity, and you get the same kind of jittery, I'm struggling to maintain control here kind of thing. And I think Avery Brooks does that. I mean, that's not his normal mode of acting as Captain Sisko. He's normally very cool. He's relaxed. He's calm, but he can pull that out of himself, and it makes a really interesting change and shows his range as an actor. Yeah,
Avery Brooks is fantastic. He's so good. There were a couple just lines from Garak that I just thought were funny. I just wanted to share before we went. If I were in your shoes, I'd grab a bottle of champagne and shoot me, he says.
That's because Julian used a champagne bottle to shoot Falcon before Falcon was Miles, although he really looked like him. Yeah. He used the cork on a champagne bottle to take down an opponent.
And then when they wake up in Dr. Noah's mountain lair on Mount Everest, he says, oh, another decorator's nightmare. This era had a distinct lack of taste, which was, again, another laugh out loud moment. He also commented on the clothing earlier as the tailor. He was commenting on it. So a lot of fun. Garak is fun. And I'm sure Garak was fun to write for. And so he always gets great lines. All right, so that does it for our discussion. Before we go, we do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Heather C., Kevin G., Brandon P., Colleen R., and James B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of our man Bashir? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can also watch The Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel, at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should subscribe, like, and leave a comment. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the Voyager episode Non Sequitur. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And Father Jason Tyler, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, kiss the girl, get the key. They never taught me that in the Obsidian Order.